Japan is one of the most hyped up and aspirational travel destinations of all time, right? People love to travel to Japan. But the thing is, especially if you live in the United States, it's kind of a far flight. And no one wants to fly 10 hours or more in economy. So today we're going to talk about ANA first class hacks, the cheapest way to fly first class, not business, first class to Japan. My name is Sean, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin. Today on Credit Card BS Podcast, as Sean mentioned, all about ANA first class, how to book it using points and miles from your credit cards. So there are two main carriers in Japan that fly between the US and Japan, ANA and JAL. I mean, there's also other US airlines like United and Delta, but we're not really going to talk about those. And each one of those, ANA and Japan Airlines, has really good first class products. Sean, you want to kind of give us a rundown?
Yeah, so for ANA, they have essentially a new product and an old product, although technically they have three first class products. It's a little weird. So on their some of their 777s, they have their newest product called ANA The Suite. This is their flagship first class product, 42 or 43 inch 4K screen, super modern seat, really, really wonderful, closing doors and all that. On their A380, they basically have the exact same thing, just slightly different. The screen is a bit smaller, but the rest of the hard product is pretty much the same. And on some of their other 777s, they have, their quote unquote worst first class product, the old ANA, I believe it's called the Square. And so that's their oldest first class product on, about half their 777s. Compared to JAL, JAL has a new product and an old product. It's a little simpler. So on their new A350-1000s, JAL has their newest first class product. This thing is gorgeous, okay? It's in a 1-1-1 configuration. So there's only 6 seats in the entire cabin. Massive screen, you got wireless charging, you basically have like 2 chairs in the thing. Looks insane. On their 777s, they have their old first class product. I've flown it, very nice. Not nearly as nice as the A350, which I haven't flown, but yeah, their 777s, still a solid first class product. If I had to rank these in terms of like what's best to worst, it would definitely be the JAL newest first class product is top. Then it's going to be second, the ANA new first class product, regardless of the suite or the A380 product, both solid. Then it goes JAL old, and then it goes ANA old. Sherwin, I don't know which of these products you might have flown, but I mean, would you kind of generally agree with my ranking on them, at least like what you've kind of seen of them before?
Yeah, I haven't yet made a trip on any of these products work for myself. I really want to try them, but I would agree generally. I would also point out that ANA's new business class product is very solid, and some people would say it's comparable to like first class products on other airlines. Would you agree with that, Sean?
I mean, I think it depends. In terms of like privacy, yeah, it actually probably beats some first class airlines. Just given that you have like a full shutting door on their ANA on the room product. You're not going to be getting, I guess, like the same level of service necessarily. Because their business class cabins, especially on their new product, are very big business class cabins. There's a lot of seats. But I would agree, like I was thinking this, like, so I just flew 2 ANA first class flights, one on the A380, one on the suite. I have the amenity kits here with me, very nice amenity kits. But I was thinking, honestly, like on the ANA, the suite flight coming back, I was like, if I was in the room right now, it would, be a pretty similar experience. Like the room, because I've flown that also before, it's really nice. So yeah, I would generally agree. I mean, I think it depends on the airline, but like, yeah, their business class, the new ANA business class, really good, really good.
Cool. So now let's talk about how you can book ANA first class, which we think is the cheapest way to fly first to Japan. I would say it's debatable about whether it's the easiest to find availability for. We'll talk about that a bit later, but it's definitely the cheapest way to fly first to Japan. And your best option is using Virgin Atlantic points. And this is a really great option because Virgin Atlantic is a quite promiscuous transfer partner. So you can move your points from Bilt, Amex, Chase, Citi, or Capital One over on a 1-to-1 ratio. And sometimes they even give 30% transfer bonuses. So you could even spend fewer points. So what's the pricing like, Sean?
So yeah, Virgin, it depends on the region of like the US or if you're going to Europe. But so basically, they price it in round trip flights, but you can book one way. So like round trip between Japan and Hawaii is 115,000 points round trip. Again, you just half it and book. You can book one way just fine. 145,000 round trip between Japan and the Western United States, and 170,000 between Japan and the Eastern United States. This is very reasonable for first class flights compared to a lot of other first class pricing out there, especially given the 30% transfer bonus. Very, very, very reasonable for a first class product. And this has been devalued actually fairly significantly. And so even after a significant devaluation, it's still really competitive even in its current state. You do need to pay carrier imposed surcharges, which are not great, but they're not awful. So depending on your specific route and when you book and what the oil prices are like and all this and the jet fuel prices, you're looking at something around $300 one way to or from the mainland and under $200 one way to or from Hawaii. Again, it depends very specifically. Like my flight from Hawaii to Japan was like 125 bucks, but my flight back into the US is like $300. So it really depends, but nothing totally outrageous. We're not looking at anything like, oh, Emirates first class, $900 surcharges, nothing like that. You do need to call to book. Virgin does not display the award inventory online, unfortunately. Luckily, Virgin representatives are, of some of the most competent in the airline industry. They know what they're talking about most of the time, compared to some other airlines. Wait times aren't too bad. So yeah, nothing, too important there. The thing though, of course, is you need Saver Space to book. And so to check Saver Space, usually, and there's some caveats coming up, if United, Copa, or Virgin Atlantic can book, or sorry, Virgin Australia, then usually Virgin Atlantic can also book. It's a little weird. So there's been some issues recently with Virgin Atlantic and ANA award space. It mainly applies to business class award space. I don't believe it applies to first class, but I want to mention it anyways. So within the 14 days to departure, so T14 as we say, Virgin Atlantic has been basically entirely blocked from booking ANA business class seats to or from the mainland US to Japan. Not Hawaii, mainland US. Now, there's not a significant amount of data on this, but in my own testing, which was a single data point, Virgin did confirm to me that a specific seat I wanted to book within 14 days in first class to or from the United States was indeed bookable with them. And so, in theory, I think it should be fine. But just note, there may be a seat that you're trying to book, and if it's within 14 days, you may have an issue. For sure in business class, most likely not in first, but just want to mention it.
I want to quickly add that,
yeah.
When you transfer points from these banks to Virgin Atlantic, that's usually instant. So you can totally get away with calling the agent first, confirming that there's availability, and then that you can book, and then like instantly transferring and then booking, so that you're not going to end up with like stranded miles in Virgin Atlantic because you transferred and then now you can't book anything with it.
That's a very good point. And I think it's also important that you bring that up. But like a lot of people do like these test transfers. Don't do that. So some people will like test 1,000 send 1,000 miles into the Virgin account to just make sure it sends properly, and then go, oh, cool, it worked. I just wanted to make sure my account was linked or whatever. And then they're like, now I'm gonna send the real amount of points right after. But when you do that, you pretty much trigger the fraud systems of the airline loyalty programs. So it goes into review and it might take a couple days. So do a single transfer if you want to do it. Don't multi-transfer. Before I move on, Sherwin, is there anything you have to add about Virgin Atlantic reps or anything you might need to know about the actual specific booking side of this before we talk into award release patterns?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah, so you can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So the release pattern on this is fairly inconsistent, especially on the ANA side. So they tend to release more seats within T14, right? 14 days to departure. But honestly, it can be totally random. Sometimes they will, dump seats if there's openings. Sometimes they won't. Even if there's an empty cabin, like my flight from Hawaii to Japan, pretty much an empty cabin. There's 3 people, including me in it. But I was, I had an alert set for that flight constantly. There was other than after my seat, I don't think a single seat got released on that flight, which was kind of insane. And so it's really inconsistent. And any space that does get released gets grabbed up really, really fast. And so I highly recommend, if you have any desire to book this, set an alert on seats.aero, my favorite award travel tool. Absolutely, like by far the best tool on the market right now. That's how I was able to book 2 ANA award, first class seats on a trip to Japan. And so seats.aero sends very fast alerts. You can get text alerts if you have their pro. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. There'll be a link in the description if you want to use my referral link. But yeah, it's really, I highly recommend it. And so the space tends to be taken if it's like an in-demand route, or especially close in, probably within like an hour or two of the space being released. And so if you want to book, set an alert. Some airports do tend to have better availability than others. So by far the easiest airport to fly in or out of with ANA first class is Honolulu. No question. Not even like that airport is, significantly easier than like any other airport by far. Second would be Chicago. Chicago is not too bad either. JFK and SFO were the other airports in the United States that are operating ANA first, I believe. I don't think there's any others. Maybe I'm wrong, but at least ANA the suite. So those are not great. SFO is a little better than JFK, but they're still possible, just not as easy. And so if you want to book, it's really either the case of booking really far out or pretty close in and having an award set. Yeah, I think that's pretty much in terms of the award release patterns. I think, Sherwin, do you have anything to add? After this, I want to talk a little bit about maybe specific like hacks or advice for flying actual like the product of ANA.
Sure. So this isn't exactly a release pattern question, but can you talk about what like the change or cancellation policy is for booking ANA with Virgin Atlantic? I think this is a relevant thing to think about if you're gonna book something speculatively, or if you're gonna book something that you're not 100% sure you can fly on.
Great question. I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I have two thoughts on this. So one, for Virgin, it's a $50 US dollar cancellation fee if you cancel the flight beyond 24 hours of booking. So if you book a flight and the flight is more than 7 days out on ANA and the flight either goes to or from the United States, you have 24 hours to cancel for free. Again, flight must be a week out or more. After that, it's a $50 US dollar cancellation fee. Honestly, not bad. I don't find the $50 to be a huge deal when booking these things. Like, I'm not going to go book 10 seats, but like, $50 to hold a first class seat to Japan on like a 10 plus hour flight, not a bad opportunity cost, right? Not a bad cost to spend $50 on, not the worst thing in the world. One interesting thing I will note, and this is like, I kind of don't want to say this because it's kind of like, I realize like this is potentially, if you get lucky, like an S tier trick. So I had a flight booked from Haneda to Chicago on ANA first, the old product, so their worst first class product. And what happened was there was a schedule change of 15 minutes. Okay, totally like not a big deal at all. 15 minutes, who cares? But ANA on the ANA website let me change that flight to a week later or a week before, confirmed ticket without needing any award space to be there. And I was able to do that. I extended my trip in Japan by 6 nights. And I also got to switch to the suite. And I got to switch to Narita, which wasn't ideal, but I got to go to a later flight and take the suite. So that was like a huge W. So let's say you're someone that is wanting to fly like next year or something, okay, like really far out. And you want to book it, but you're like, oh, God, this date doesn't work for me, right? I need it to be like a couple days before or after. I need to fly on this very specific date. If you're willing to risk $50, you could just book it, hope there's a schedule change, and hope ANA allows you to change it. Now, I'm not guaranteeing they're going to have this policy in place. I'm not guaranteeing they're going to schedule change or anything like that. But it's only a $50 risk to be able to fly ANA first class on the exact date you want. So that was something I was like, wow, that's a really, really cool thing that they let me do. Because it's only a 15-minute schedule change. I didn't
So
have to
this was
call
something
anyone to beg
that
for it.
ANA proactively offered, that like you did not have to go back through Virgin Atlantic to fix.
So I had to go through Virgin, yes, but not exactly. So like I didn't even like know initially there's a schedule change, but I go on the ANA portal, like the ANA site, view my reservation, and it gives me the option to directly change on ANA. And so I go to change it, I make the change. It gives me an error saying the change, there was an issue and I need to contact them. I call ANA. ANA is like, yes, we've changed you, but the ticket hasn't been issued. You need to contact Virgin to actually reissue the ticket. I'm getting nervous, right? Because I'm already in Japan at this point. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was hoping to have an extra 6 nights, right? I thought this was like confirmed. I call Virgin. Virgin issues the ticket, no problem. They did not need, there was not award space for the day I changed. They did not need award space. They were able to reissue the ticket. So yes, I had to call Virgin, but like, I wasn't like I had to grovel and beg with the phone rep, if that makes sense. Like it was something that was like actively offered on the ANA site. And then once I made the change, Virgin was able to do no problem.
Okay, cool. That's a really neat trick I didn't know about. So thank you for sharing. Are there other tricks we should know about, or should we wrap up?
I mean, I think that's really the main trick. At least for me now, like if there's a flight really far out and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to go on that specific day, I'm gonna, remember that. I had a really good time flying ANA first. I would say the only things, I would advise, if you're traveling solo, try to get a window seat, obviously. I personally prefer, if you're gonna film the flight, I always like taking row two instead of row one. So if I'm like standing up, people don't, see me, they don't get disturbed by me filming. If you're someone that like values like expensive, I mean, if you're flying anytime like soon, they are offering that, Hibiki. They're selling a bottle of Hibiki 100th anniversary blend, duty free for 50,000 yen, which is actually like a screaming deal because the cheapest you can buy that from any like whiskey shop, even in Japan, is like 160,000 yen. So there's a nice 1 Mile at a Time wrote an article about it. There's like a nice arbitrage opportunity there. But yeah, I mean, it's a great product. They give you pajamas, keep the pajamas. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. So hopefully you all found this video about ANA first class hacks helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe this video. Also, if you're interested in applying for any credit cards, please consider using one of our referral links down in the description below. It greatly helps support the channel. And then Sean, why don't you plug our Discord as we wrap up today?
So if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers and credit card enthusiasts entirely for free, check out the Traveling Discord group at the link in the description. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.